My name is Tim Glotzbach. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the Director of Student Crafts. And for maybe no particular reason, or maybe for particular reasons, I was contacted about talking with you a little bit about time management and about high-performing teams. I don't want to say that our team in Student Crafts is any more high-performing than the one you're putting together. That would be untrue, and it would be incorrect, and would be disrespectful. All of us are put together high-performing teams, but I think there are certain things that you can do to help that. And for, like it or not, we as supervisors most times set the standards that our students will mentor. We'll mentor them in these, sometimes in the wrong way. We mentor them a lot of times in the right way. But there are things that we need to be careful of, from the way we react initially to what we see, the way we express them with our faces, those types of things. We say a lot to our students. It's kind of a collective thing. We want to go through that today. I have resources that are going to be online that you can use. Many of you, when you're talking about time management, you know that students already are probably given lots of options. They have calendars. They all have phones. I don't know how many of you do it, but my phone is my best calendar, and I guard it and I put things on there. But one of our responsibilities, and one of the things I will end with today, is really some things that you might do to help your students, because they may think, like I do, that I'm a really good time manager, and I find all the time that I am a horrible time manager because I don't do it to the degree that I should all the time. Many of you may agree with that. Many of you may say, no, you're perfect on it, and I congratulate you if you are. I'm still learning, okay, how to do that. And I think that's the point. As we'll talk about today, time management is something that is developed over a long period of time. A long period of time. My personal opinion is that the day you don't have to manage time anymore is as perfect as you're ever going to be, okay? That's going to come to all of us sometime. Until then, we're all developing things. So let's go through some things really quick. I want to talk a little bit first to give you an understanding, and a lot of you will know this. You can look at some links online. That's why I've provided them, so that you can read. Use online resources. Students are going to come to you in one of two ways: to work and to learn. And they're either going to come with what they call an affective domain or a cognitive domain. They're going to come with feelings about their jobs. Why do they want to be there? Now, for us in the craft, sometimes we get people that say, I love doing this. I want to do it. I want to work with my hand. It's my major. Some of you will have that, especially if you have students that are engaged in labor positions that are closely aligned to their major. It's something about who they are, and they like that, and they have feelings. They're motivated by attitudes, different types of things. Other students will come to you, and they're motivated because they want to learn. Now that can be good too, but they're also motivated by grades. They're motivated by performing. They're motivated by achieving. They want to reach the next level. And those two things are two ideas and habits of mind that very possibly those students were born with. It's who they are. Lots of us are the same way. We find in our lives that that's the type of learner that we are, or that's the type of atmosphere that we work within. As supervisors, we have to learn to read students. Now, I know you've got a job to do. I've got one to do. You've got one to do, and they're all important. And as we've heard today, many of us are concerned about how can we get the job done with these students? How quickly can they learn this thing? The one thing that I would recommend that you do, and you've heard it 3 different times today, I'm going to be the 4th, is that today starts the day when you can set the professional standards that you need in your job. How professionally do we accept our positions? Is this a program? Is this a business? Is this a company? Is this an enterprise? However you look at it, that has an importance and a dignity and a responsibility to the campus. It starts with me first. I have to be the first one to do that. But I have to understand that the students coming to me may have no understanding of what a job is. Whether the job that they're in is purely labor, whether they feel like this is a higher-minded job, it involves research or whatever, we still have to figure out where those students are, because sometimes you have incredibly feeling students. You have incredibly students that are dictated by getting the warm fuzzies out of something, and they're in a highly technical field. And so sometimes it may not be right. They may have to adjust their thinking as well. But we're going to have to figure out exactly what these students are when they come. So you guys can read this. I'm just going to tell you what's there and everything. Intrinsic or extrinsic goals. Students come to us with a variety of different ways they want to learn. Is it that they're doing it for self-enjoyment, self-fulfillment, they want to achieve mastery of a subject? Those of us in the crafts might have students that do that. I want to learn to do this really well. Those of us in the ag program, on the farms, those of us in tech, it doesn't matter. I want to learn this because it's something that's tied to things that I want to do, I want to achieve. And so it may be that their labor positions are not at all tied to their major. It's an interest they have in their life, and Berea is going to give them a chance and actually pay them to do something they enjoy for 4 years. They're majoring in mathematics, but they love being in the weaving studio weaving. Those two things, yeah, Amy, because Amy's had a lot of math students, okay. But it makes sense to them because this is about self-fulfillment. If you read the labor program goals, the one choice our students have is to select a labor position that fits their academic pursuits and the things that fulfill their resume or their desires or their future or their profession. And the other one is self-fulfillment. Things they want to know, new things they want to learn. You're going to have to figure out that. So you'll have some students that are just engaged to be there. Other students, they're after the grade. They just want to do it well. I have to do a good job. I have to move to that next position. I have to do that. So extrinsically motivated students are after the grade. Intrinsically motivated students, they want to do it for themselves. They want to be able to perform. So when you start talking with students about a job, you really have to make sure that they can understand. Understanding why is important as knowing how. We can teach them how to do the job. You have to do it this way. This is how we need to have it done. It's because of safety reasons, because we have to adhere to these guidelines, because this is the work we have to do, because this is what we're called to do. We have to do that, the how. But do they understand why? Why is it important? We heard today people talking about, Gail was talking about cleaning a bathroom. Well, I have a good friend who told me once, she said she learned about cleaning bathrooms from one of her supervisors when she was out of college, and she took a waitressing job between jobs. And her supervisor came up to her one day and says, "Beth, you're going to have to learn how to clean bathrooms faster." And she looked at her and she said, "But this is the way I clean them at home. It has to be, all the corners have to be clean, everything." He says, "How many times do you clean your bathroom at home?" She says, "Well, once a week." He says, "You're going to clean this bathroom 3 times a day? Trust me, by the end of you doing 3 times, all the little things you're trying to do now will be taken care of." So you have to help students understand what the job is that they're doing. And you have to have them think about it. Why is it important? Do you have a mission statement for your program? Now, I know this sounds funny, and I know this doesn't make sense. I've provided you with about 50 different mission statements by all kinds of organizations that you can go look at, from 2-word mission statements to paragraph-long mission statements. Why does your area, your program, your department do what you do? What's important about it? How do you bring those things in? Do your students know what that is? Work with them to develop a mission statement. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be long. But somehow your students need to know why it is you do what you do. You're going to have to early on determine the strengths in each student. They're going to have to know what they are. Now, the college has something called Strengths Finder, which I think that we may or may not find more about through the labor program. It is something that people on campus some people are trained in. I've provided some links to it. You can read a little bit about it. You can see what the book is. I did it a long time ago because a college president said all of their staff read this, their senior staff read this, and we took that. But it helps find where your strengths are. You've already heard it say today, I am not good at everything I do, but I'm I have a pretty good understanding about all the things I don't do really well right now. And I don't spend a whole lot of time on those things because I'm not going to get better. I'm not wired that way. But the things I am good at, those are the things I spend my time on because that's where I can make the most benefit. So there are ways to help a student understand that. Try to align tasks or jobs with their student skills. Now, I can use examples from student crafts. You know, if we have someone that's an incredible communicator and we have customer service work to do, and they can just go with the flow, and they can laugh when they can feel good when somebody on the other end is not so happy, we try to apply them to customer service areas, answering the phones. They have to have good communication skills. You know, you need to assign those when you can. But the important thing is that any job a student has, help them find a goal. You need to set the goals for them. They need to know what the goals of that position are. Today is the first day to start that, when you start your process today. Students have to be able to track their progress. Now, I know some supervisors have very specific tracking sheets. I'm going to use Amy as an example in weaving. I've seen her tracking sheet. She teaches the students, this is how you know when you're doing a good job, and every day you need to record this. She makes it part of that. Academics does it. But in labor now, we're being asked to go a step further. How do we know that our students are doing a good job? How do we know that they're learning? How do we know that what we're teaching them is good? I have given, again, some examples of assessment tools that you can use. Your assessment tool can be as simple as, at your labor meeting, so what did we do good this week? What did you see other people do? What types of things are working well? What types of things aren't working well? If you could redesign this and how we do this particular task, what are you guys seeing that we might change? That's all assessment. And it's helping a student understand whether they're doing things better. Because sooner or later, somebody's going to say, well, I realized the other day that so-and-so does this a lot better than I do. And have that other student help you do the training and move someone through that. But, you know, they have to track their progress somehow. As the supervisor, you get to choose and you get to help them develop, or you develop, what is that tracking process. Now, for some of you who have, the college farms might be a good example. Well, the crops need to be, the animals need to live, you know. I mean, they have to have food. There's certain things, you know, cows want to be fed and milk, you know, pigs need to be taken care of, whatever, at a certain time. So you can track your project by the health of what it is. Can we look at the people we serve and do the same thing? Oh, maybe that's a pretty good tracking tool. How many times do we have to reship something in student crafts because we made a mistake on the order? If we did, we go back and retrain. So there are ways within your area that I challenge you to find for the assessment, because you're the supervisor. You know the job. You have to do that. Having a student believe that they have the abilities to do something is something that's going to be very important. You're going to have to find ways to do that within your job. There are lots of ways. Self-efficacy is called. It's a belief that one's capabilities to achieve a goal are there. Now, a lot of us have them. You know, right now, you all believe that you can teach everything in the job that you need to do to students, and they can perform the job well. I have to believe that you know you can do that. You're here. You've been at Berea College. You're still in your position. You believe it, or somebody else believes it for you, but clearly you must be demonstrating that because you're still in that position. We have to help students be able to do that. There are different ways. Students will accept, and you can help them by pointing out how they've mastered certain situations. Find ways to make it relevant to them. If you know a little bit about their life, try to relate it to things that they've relayed to you about their life. If you know they're from a city, and you know that they have interaction with people on a day-to-day basis, you might draw the fact that they're a little bit more outgoing than somebody like myself who grew up on a farm and saw the same 4 other brothers and sisters day in and day out, and that was your team that you played with, okay? So when I went to high school, having grown up in the country, was I a little bit more of an introvert? Possibly, okay? Because I had to develop those skills. Other kids aren't. So, you know, those mastery of experiences help them do that. You know, then there's those vicarious experiences. That's living through somebody else. If you can get students next to each other and you can team them up or pair them up, sometimes students will exceed and excel because the person next to them is, because they're working as a team. And the team succeeds. And they feel really good because they're part of that team, even if it's 2 people. So find ways to help them learn and help them feel good because they're teamed up with somebody. Because secretly I say, well, I want to work with Bob because he knows farming. Okay, so if I want my farmer, I'll work with him. Help people do that. It helps them gain the experience they need by example. It helps them move forward. Social persuasion, talk to people. Talk with them socially. Compliment them. Give them an understanding of what they're doing right. You can do that. It works well. You have to understand that when you reprimand people socially, publicly, that you do the opposite. You drive them another way. You have to be careful with that, because on the split second I'll say something that everybody else hears, and we have to watch those types of things. The emotional state. You've already heard about that. Sue talked about the emotional state of someone coming. What you say, how they do, and what they think is a product of their emotional state. Can you change the emotional state? No, you can just add to the grief that's already there, or pump up a little bit of what's there. You have to see where they are. Okay, I know that this is difficult sometimes, because saying, I got a job to do. We're going to get to that in just a second. But I've got a job to do, and they have to be able to perform. There are real fine lines between motivation, manipulation, commitment, and obsession. Okay? Motivation, manipulation. You can motivate somebody, you can manipulate them as well. Okay? Now, when I say there's a fine line between motivation and manipulation, what am I referring to? Well, pitting students against each other to get the result that you need out of someone or a situation is manipulation. You're gonna lose in that. So are both the students. Motivating someone is giving them a reason to excel and to move forward. And you have to be careful with that. This concept of commitment and obsession. I'm committed to student crafts, but I also understand that not everybody else is going to share the same level of commitment that I have. So if I press it to the point of obsession, and I'll tell you this, I love my wife, but I am not on the phone every 5 minutes seeing what Nancy's doing, where she's doing it. Is she doing what I would want her to do? Has she called anybody today? Has she talked to anybody today? Don't talk to other men, because that sounds funny, but that's obsession. That's not commitment. I would cross way over the line on commitment. So how are we about the jobs that we have as supervisors? Do we understand that the students we have might be there one semester? Are we willing to commit what we might think is a lifetime of belief in this for one semester to one student? I hope that we are. Educate your students. Students will respond to education. Make sure they know what they need to know. They love to learn, whether they tell you that or not. They love to learn because it's developing new skills. But why? Because they want to master a technique, or because they just love learning? Then you have to understand, and then you kind of pattern your teaching methods to each one. They'll respond to a challenge. Set a challenge up for your teams. Make sure that they know that there are things to gain. You decide what that challenge is. Does it have a reward? Is it a monetary reward? Is it a food reward? Is it a reward? Do you ever let anybody else on campus know when the students in your area have done something great? I do a lot, and sometimes there's something written about it, and a lot of times there's not. But it's my responsibility to let people know. Even if somebody just says, tell your students we're proud of them. That's it, because they know that somebody else outside them knew about it. You can do that no matter where you work on campus. Your expectations need to be high. You've heard 3 other people talk about that. Today is the day to say, I expect you to be at work on time. These are the consequences if you don't, so I expect you to be here. If you have a problem, this is what I expect you to do. Here's the hard part. When the expectations aren't met, do we say, well, they'll get it the next time? Or, I'll let it go this time. It'll be okay. Or do we address it? And say, look, remember we talked about the first day. You can't do this. You need to hold the expectations high. Think about what your supervisors do with you, and I'm assuming they treat you fairly and honestly and carefully, and I would hope that. But we need to do the same things. Those expectations are there. Here's the key. High performance doesn't mean that they know everything, they do everything perfectly, and they will never make a mistake. They will make mistakes. They will not do it right. They will not be efficient. They will waste time because when I say all those things, I can say, yep, that describes Tim Glotzbach to a T. Okay? We are not perfect in everything we do. But our role as supervisors is to guide people through that. So you have to be a leader, a mentor, and a peer. The thing that this quote on here, and I'll let you read it up there, I think was so important. You can find tons of information online, so can your students. I don't have to teach anybody jewelry techniques. There are books online, there are videos they can get. They can learn all of that. What I spend my time doing is teaching them how to think. How do you use that information? What do you do? How do you apply it? How do you do those things? As labor supervisors, that's what you have to do. We've provided you with a lot of information today. You can use it, but really what you have to do is, how do you need for those students to think? Because performing their job is really a matter of thought and process. Maybe it's acceptance, maybe it's understanding. Because we have a lot of different positions there. Why do players, here's a question I always ask myself, why do players compete on teams, and I'll use athletics as an example, that they know they have, pardon my friend, they have what we might call a snowball's chance in hell of ever winning a national title? Why would people do that? A lot of you could probably name off 5 schools who you think probably will win the national title in basketball this year. And yet there are teams out there that will compete all year, and they compete with the same vigor and the same high intensity that anybody else does. Why do they do that? If the goal is to be national champion, why do you waste your time? They do it for a variety of reasons, but they probably do it because of the coach. They stay because of the coach. They're learning something. They stay because of the people on the team. They get to compete with people that they respect, and they compete in a position that they're good at. They're still a good guard. They're still a good forward. And how many of you who like sports think a lot of pro players, and you hear about the big ones, but all the people who make millions of dollars a year on a team, who came out of small schools, who were never going to win a national title. But the work on the team, the work that they did, paid off big for them. People stay together as a team. People compete as a team because of the coach, because of what they're getting back, the feedback, and because of the people that they work with. So you're going to have to adapt your leadership style to each person. There are times when you're a leader. There are times when you're a mentor. And there are times when I'm cleaning the men's restroom in the front office of Student Crafts, because guess what? There's 2 guys there, and I'm one of them that uses the bathroom. Okay? So I clean it. I can scrub a mean toilet. Okay? It's not beneath me. Because I decided a long time ago that nothing that the students did or anybody else did on campus was beneath me. I'd work alongside of them, and that was fine. Whether they did the work or not, I was still going to do it. I might remind them it's their job, but I'm going to clean the bathroom anyway. And if it needed cleaning and it was their time and they didn't, I cleaned it anyway. Because it needed to be cleaned. Because teaching somebody that doing the job is the appropriate thing is what I wanted to do. Well, the job needed to be done. I did it. Okay. Did I hope that they felt a little ashamed? Sure. I'm human. Okay. I'll shame somebody every now and then, I guess, you know. But you need to adapt your leadership style. That's the supervisor as peer. Are you willing to be their peer? That can be hard. Are you willing to say, I'm not the supervisor, I do the same work you do? We find ways to do that, but we do that with our actions. We don't tell them we're their peer, and then never act as though we are equal at the level they are. You personally need to set a work and time management example. That you can, I'm not a good example of time management. Steve's laughing right now because he knows that, okay? Because I like to work, so I tend to take on more work, and then I get to a point where I get a little stressed, and then everybody around me knows I'm stressed because my face shows it and because my actions show it. So I know it because I'm willing to talk about it. It's a problem that I have to fight. But you need to set that example in some way. Do you have a schedule that you follow? You do that by starting your labor meetings on time, having everything ready when you do it. You're aware, you're complete. Your students know that this is important to you. And it's that importance that they do. It makes me feel special when I go someplace and everything's ready and the talking's done and there's good information, and I feel like I'm being encouraged and served and helped because they understand that my time is as valuable as theirs is. Do your students believe that you value their time as an individual as much as you might value their work time in there? So there's work that we have to do. There's no way about it. You have to compete, and I say, can you compete in your own arena? Are you prepared to teach? If you're having a labor meeting and you need to show them certain things, have you visited the parts of these websites that we said you could go to? Do you know what? Do you have papers printed out? Are you prepared? Do you know what you want to say? Have you just spent a few minutes? And you don't have to have spent your life in a classroom to be a good teacher. You teach more by example. And my problem is I get mouthy and wordy and preachy because I stood up in front of groups of students for, 20 years. And so that's who I am. And some of you think you can't teach maybe because you haven't done it. No, you're probably a better teacher because this is what you need to talk about. This is what you transmit. You do it in a way that the students relate to, and you're an incredibly good teacher because of that. But you have to be prepared. You have to know what you want to teach. All of you probably do, but do you know what you need to teach them that day? Because you can't teach them everything in a single day. Time management, building good teams takes a long time. You can't build a good team in one day. You'll work at it every single day that you see that student. And you work with them all individually. And here's something that I learned because you're working with people that learn 3 different ways. Teach what you taught. You teach them. Then you teach them what you taught them, and then you tell them what you just taught them. Okay? Because you have visual learners. Those are people that like charts and graphs, and they love things like this because they can read it. And if you've got pictures of something, and then when you show them by example, they're picking all that up. They love that. They make notes. They take notes. They make little drawings. Then you've got those auditory learners. Those are the people who hear things. They can see all this stuff, but they have to hear it. And they have to hear it from you. And they might have to see it and hear it at the same time. So I let them hear it a couple of different times. I make sure, in fact, I'll have somebody in class, one of the students, repeat it so that those students hear it because it comes through a student's voice and not mine. Now, when I was teaching full-time, those were the times when people actually learned. Because they'd look at me and say, why didn't you explain it the way they did? I said, I did. And they said, no, you didn't. Because mine was a little bit more high-minded. This student just gave them the information they needed. And then there are those tactile learners. Those are the ones that have to be hands-on and everything else. I'm one of those. I learn well that way. If I'm in it, doing it, and I make mistakes, and I do it again, I do it. You have to decide where those are because there's 3 different types in every group of people. So you need to teach all the way. So do lots of explanations, do lots of talking, let the students talk back, show them lots of things, show them examples. Put up charts in your workplace if you have to. Put up the way you want it done so they can monitor and mirror that. But then also take them through it and make them do the work. Make them the champions and the heroes because they're the ones that are doing the work. Put the praise on them because without the team, you're doing all of it. And that's a hard life here at Berea. When you have to do all of it, you just need a good team. So those of you that have been through the lean process know that there are these 8 great ways that we have, and I'm just going to list them here. We use them because we've taken our production areas through this, and I tell you this simply because there isn't a place on campus that can't take away some waste. Now, we don't use the word efficiency because efficiency means you're not doing something right. We talk about eliminating waste. If I eliminate waste, whether that is time or moving around or whatever, I've become more efficient as a result of eliminating waste. So, I'm providing you a worksheet that kind of explains these. Operational awareness, I think, is at the top of the list for one reason. The more somebody knows about why they're doing what they're doing, and the more they know about why and who it supports and how it benefits the institution, the better employee, the better worker, the better team member that person's going to be, because they know why. Instead of me saying, just do it and don't ask why. That does not create a healthy team member. That just creates somebody who feels like You just need them to do it because you don't want to. And that's not where we are. Are you spending time, investing time, or after you invested the time, do you have time to work with your students in a different way? So you can either spend the time, invest the time, or have the time to work with your students. Now we're into keeping a schedule. It's going to be a matter of habit, and we're going to challenge all of you to start with your students this week. Some of them will come with a schedule. That's really great. You know, in the handouts, I've got some exercises that I'm going to let you look at that you can take students through. Probably not today because you're so busy, but in the months of September and October is when we hope that you're working with your teams. If I feel like it takes a lifetime to be a really good scheduler, do you think that they're going to get it perfect after 2 months or 4 years? I don't think so, because your situation always changes, and I didn't have a spouse when I was there, so I didn't have to put that in the time. Oh, I didn't have kids. I didn't have to schedule around kids. Boy, they didn't have school. Boy, they didn't have athletics. I didn't have a sick parent when I did this. Your schedules are constantly changing. You can teach them how to put together a schedule, but what we really need you to do is teach them how to manage that schedule. What do you do when things change? You have to change the schedule. You have to put in the time. Teach them to ask the right questions. Why do I need to stick in the schedule? I can remember it. I got it all in my mind. Yeah, I do too. Okay? Till I missed a meeting last week and I had to apologize because people were waiting on it. Okay? Because it was all in my stinking phone, and I left my phone on my desk. Bad idea. Okay? Doesn't work well. So teach them why do you need a schedule? What do you need to put in the schedule? Why do you need to schedule in sleep? Why do you need to schedule in free time? Which they better do. If you see their schedules and they don't have free time in their schedule, talk to them about it. They have to have some downtime. All of you do, I do, everybody does. It's one of my problems, scheduling downtime, because I always feel like I should be doing something else. That is bad, okay? I'm not a good role model on that. Help them understand about delayed gratification and rewards. If I have on my schedule studying now, I will say, well, you know what, I could probably do that later tonight, so right now I'm going to put this in because this seems more important. No, this is what I challenge you to have them do, and I've kind of written this out in there. I challenge you to sit down with them and help them put together a schedule, and there's a form in there. They put in all their classes. They can put in exams that they know about. It's a daily schedule you can do, but they need to put in their work schedule, and they need to put in any extracurricular activities that are there, and then challenge them to keep that schedule perfectly. They can't change anything for a whole week, and come back to your next labor meeting and report on how successful it was. My opinion is that most of them are going to say, boy, that didn't work real well. I forgot that and put that in your schedule. And then challenge them to do it another week and come back. Well, how did that schedule work for you now? Didn't work any better than it did the first week because I forgot that. Okay? And they'll start to understand that their schedule is going to change continually based on the situations in their life, what you're asking out of them, what their professors are asking out of them. It's going to move. But someone is going to have to help them sit down and do that. We're being challenged as labor supervisors to help participate in that process. Now, they've got faculty members in their class that are doing it, and they've got their advisors that are doing it. We're trying to hit them at every level. Labor is one of the levels that we're doing it. So as we end up today, I've put a number of different resources online. And again, as I said, I'm going to kind of do an instructor's guide that I'm going to ask David if he can upload to the website for the information. The instructor's guide will basically take certain slides that you can go back and review. And it'll say slide number 4, and it'll give you handouts that you can pull down from online. I ask you to do this. There is a wealth of information online. 99% of it is copyrighted, which means that you use it in the appropriate way. I have given credit, hopefully that you saw throughout this, where I found information, where I quoted somebody, that website is there, and where it came from is there. It's not mine. It belongs to somebody else. But it doesn't mean that it's not important, and it doesn't mean that I don't want to share it. I'm not printing out copies and selling it. I'm not selling my presentation. So be careful to give credit where credit's due when you pull it down. But there are resources there. You saw Sue gave you that same thing, and she always had those resources documented on there. Students understand that. They do it every time they write a paper. Well, here are my resources. Here are my footnotes. No, this is where I got the idea, because it's all research, and we hope you to do that. What we want to do as labor supervisors, because I'm one too, and what we want to do as staff members and faculty members at the institution, is to find every way we can with this new freshman class to see if we can give them that fresh start. From helping them to manage their life, which many of them have not had to do by themselves, helping them to be successful team members, and what does that mean? But it's going to start with all of us, and helping us to understand that it would be easy if they all thought the same way. But they don't. It would be easy that they all learned the same way, but they don't. Some of them are going to need the same explanation 10 or 20 times. And it would be easy if they all stayed with us for 4 years, and they don't. I lived that every day when I was teaching. Out of 20 students that I would have every semester, I'd say if 4 of them go on to the second class in this area, I will feel great. Because I knew that they had other interests, and they weren't going to be as committed as I was, and I couldn't be obsessive with them about it. You're going to need to find ways to do that, because you do have a job to do. We have things we have to do. They are our peers. They are our mentees. And they are the students that we supervise. So thank you.